This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by $1 Genre. Hey everybody, it's AJ here. Just letting you know that I have started a new project called $1 Genre, and here is how it works. This year, 2022, my New Year's resolution, I aim to make one film a month. So that's 12 films, 12 short films, I should say. And I want you guys to be involved. And the way you can be involved is over at patreon.com/$1 genre. If you go on there for $1, donate $1, and every month you will get to suggest and vote on the genre of the next short film I'm going to make. Does that sound like a familiar business model to Cult Popture? Maybe I saw something that worked and thought maybe I could do it again. You can go over there, you can suggest anything from rom-com to Soviet propaganda. Whatever you think is a genre, suggest it, and if it gets enough votes, I will make a short film based on that suggestion. This is a super exciting project. I'm really excited about it, so I hope you guys are all really excited for it too. You can also follow $1 Genre on Twitter and Instagram and subscribe to a YouTube channel. But the main thing is the Patreon, so if you want to support AJ and a new project and you want to make me make something stupid or cool, up to you, then head on over to $1 Genre, patreon.com/$1 genre, and get involved. Some of you are already there already, and I really appreciate that. So, yeah, cool. Let's get to the episode. Welcome, everybody, to the Cult Popture podcast. It's the new year, and it's the new me. I'm AJ, previously known as AJ, but now I'm new AJ. I'm the new AJ, and I'm over here with the classic Richard, the classic model. Yeah. We're trying out new AJ and classic Richard here on the Cult Popture podcast.
That's classic Richard. But although at some point I imagine you'll flop and classic AJ will make a triumphant return.
And we'll make millions. But that being said, what is the difference between new AJ and classic AJ? Almost nothing. Actually, literally nothing, I would say.
Yeah, well, this AJ is making 12 short films.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I'm making 12 short films. You've probably heard me talk about it in a little preamble, so get involved in that.
You're in the middle of making one right now, I believe.
I wonder what it is. We're recording this ahead of time, but quite a considerable...
The poll's about to shut, isn't it?
Yeah. I know what it'll be.
And I'm excited to see it, just like the rest of the world.
Head on over to $1 Genre on various platforms, including Patreon, to get involved in that. So, it's quite early in the morning at least for recording. We woke up at 9 a.m. It's currently, the magic revealed. It's currently the 31st of December. We've got plans for New Year's and cannot record any later than right now. So we've already recorded a generic movie podcast episode for Patreon and are now going into recording this for the main show. I've got my little oat milk coffee to try and wake me up throughout the episode, but I'm defying how tired I feel by pretending I'm not tired. Does that make sense?
Nice. Yeah. But what we are here to talk about today is the Marvel Cinematic Universe TV shows of 2021. So Marvel started a new thing this year. It was supposed to start last year, but there was a bloody COVID-19 pandemic. And yeah, so we had these new shows premiere on Disney Plus. We had 5 of them come out this year.
Insane.
Which is insane.
It was insane until I realized, it is just that some of these were supposed to come out last year, I guess.
Yeah. I think so the 5 TV shows we're talking about are WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki Season 1, What If Season 1, and Hawkeye. And so Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to be the first one and was supposed to come out last year. Well, 2020, I should say.
Right. The reason we're doing this is because this is sort of the second part of our MCU quote-unquote Phase 4 coverage that we did for the movies of 2021, which we did 2 weeks ago, and all of this being sort of a follow-up, a film franchise follow-up to our MCU episode, because it looks as if the MCU would begin to become untenable if we're ever going to do a proper return to it later down the track after whatever they're calling Phase 4 comes to a close. So, go back and listen to our episode on the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies of 2021 if you haven't. But this is going to be on the Marvel Cinematic Universe TV shows of 2021 on Disney+, which, as you said, there is the insane number of 5 of them. And I think that's insane because there's this idea that like TV shows are like the little brother to movies. You know what I mean? Like it's like they're only TV shows, so let's chuck 5 of them out. But it's like TV shows are longer. They probably cost around the same to make, if not more. Like what a crazy output. The Marvel Cinematic Universe this year put out 4 movies and 5 TV shows. That's 9 separate projects. And God, what a crazy world to live in. And it's funny as well because when Disney Plus first launched in late 2019, they launched with The Mandalorian, and I was like, sweet, gonna watch this. And then it ended, and then there was nothing. There was nothing to watch after it ended. And I always thought, like, why wouldn't you line up the different TV shows to air 1 to 2 weeks after the last one so that you keep people subscribed for a reason? And then that's what they did this year. I don't know why they... I mean, obviously, things weren't ready in time, I guess, but it was always weird to me. Well, the pandemic would have been after the plan to...
Yeah. It was still, even without the pandemic, there was still a flaw in their release schedule that they launched quite bombastically with, The Mandalorian and High School Musical, the series, and then, there was nothing planned for so long, and then it all got delayed as well.
But it's here, and we're here to talk about it. So let's talk about what we thought of the TV. Do we want to do general thoughts at the end? Go through all the shows first?
Or, like, what did you think of the year of television, you mean?
Yeah, do we want to do that at the end?
Yeah, okay.
We can do it now, I don't mind.
Let's do it now, yeah. What do you think of the year of television for Marvel?
I don't think they're very good. I think that Marvel Cinematic Universe TV shows is maybe... some of the weakest stuff I think we've seen in the MCU. I liked 2 of the shows. I didn't like one of the shows, and I thought the other 2 were all right and then got bad. That's like, and I'm pretty disappointed with these shows, and I have very little nice things to say about them, I think, going forward, to be honest. Wow. Which is strange because I used to be like, the MCU isn't necessarily great, but it can do no wrong. And I don't... There's one plot element that happens in one of these shows that is my least favourite thing to ever happen in the MCU. And when I say it can do no wrong, what I'm saying is, like, even the quote-unquote bad MCU films are still, like, they don't ruin the story, unlike Star Wars, which, when there's a bad Star Wars movie, it retroactively destroys everything they've built. They'd never had anything like that. Like Thor, I think I talked about this last week, that Thor 2 is, like, bad, but it doesn't make me not care about the series anymore. It doesn't ruin the series. But there's something in one of these that I did actually take that
ruined Thor 2.
It ruined Thor 2. So let's get into... starting with, I presume, WandaVision.
Yeah, you presume accurate.
No, thank you
so
much.
WandaVision debuted all the way back in January last year.
Wow,
January 15th, 2021. Ran for 9 episodes, which is quite a few. I'll say it. And what's WandaVision about?
Well, start kicking off with maybe their most eclectic and experimental show. WandaVision was about Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, and Vision, who had previously died in Avengers Infinity War. But WandaVision was this sort of Twin Peaksian mystery where every episode was stylized as a different decade of sitcom where you'd slowly work out what was going on with Wanda. How was she hanging out with Vision? Why was it like I Love Lucy or or Malcolm in the Middle? And eventually what is revealed is that she is made like a mind palace and she's recreated Vision, because it turns out she's actually very powerful.
Yeah.
And there are a whole bunch of, is it Sword that's trying to?
Yeah.
Sword is trying to essentially apprehend her because she's dangerous, and there's also one of the sitcom characters in the sitcom world is revealed to be Agatha Harkness, a witch from Marvel Comics, played by Catherine Hahn, who is ultimately the big bad of the show. Spoilers for all these shows, by the way.
Yeah, so this episode, this series, most of its episodes were these sort of self-contained, a different decade. The first 2 episodes premiered together and were quite a bit shorter than the rest of them. But it's clearly just like these could have been one episode, but they just wanted to do the 50s and the 60s,
right?
Even though they're mostly indistinguishable. And then the 70s episode, things sort of really kick off. Wanda gets pregnant. She has twins named Billy and Tommy, who are her kids in the comics. And because the baby, she gets pregnant and has the babies like very, very quickly. And then there's a nosy neighbor called Geraldine who shows up. She ends up getting kicked out when Wanda realizes she's a member of Sword. And then we get our episode 4. We get the sort of what's actually happening a little bit, and that's when we went Jimmy Woo from the Ant-Man movies, or Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Darcy from the Thor movies are like members of. So it's like bringing in these random side characters from different properties.
I really like that, and I think that's where the concept of a cinematic universe can really shine. Is like having these free agents that cross different franchises and different movies within the cinematic universe.
But I remember you like, so episode 4 they do the like pull back the curtain, and I remember you being so adamant that this was like an insane time in the show to reveal that, and I remember like not agreeing at all. And so I want to cast our minds back to January 29th, 2021.
Yeah, okay.
Relive that.
Well, so basically, I think when your show is only 9 episodes long, I think maybe that was a consideration I didn't have at the time. But I do think it's like WandaVision is a cowardly show, I think, because it tiptoes into unprecedented kind of like this extremely, extremely stylistic form of storytelling that the MCU have been criticized time and time again for not doing, and now they go hard into a direction nobody expected them to. And the first 3 episodes are quite mysterious and quite like, oh, what's going on? And then the 4th episode, it's like if Twin Peaks revealed everything 4 episodes in. Like, I don't know.
Twin Peaks significantly longer than 9 episodes, though.
I guess so, but I guess what I'm saying is that it's this show, the biggest sin of this show is that it was touted as being quite different and quite interesting, but then it ultimately was able to wiggle its way back into its comfort zone, which is something we see with that episode, and then ultimately the finale of the show, which took this super interesting concept of it's a different sitcom every episode and turned that into no, it's a Marvel movie, which, obviously I'm not the first person to make that observation about the series, but I do agree that it was bad. I thought it was a shame to go from something as crazy as superheroes in a Modern Family-esque type show, and then
yeah, I mean the sitcom stuff was great, and it was really well done as well. Episode 5 though had a big sort of bombshell that I think we want to talk about, and people are going to want us to talk about.
Well, first, what was your favorite sitcom send-up? What was your favorite style parody?
I really like that later on they do mid to late 2000s, and it's early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s is a parody of most specifically Malcolm in the Middle for the Halloween episode.
I agree.
Which came out in February.
That was also my favorite episode, and I thought, or at least my favorite parody. And I thought what's crazy about this is that is to see something like Malcolm the Middle being used as a intertextual element. Like usually the intertextual elements are like Shakespeare and are like these classic works of literature which parallel the character journeys and stuff like that. But in this, it's Malcolm in the Middle, and it's not just like a vague parody. Like in another episode, you see them watching Malcolm in the Middle. It's just very funny. Right, yeah. It's very funny to like see such a what I would call quite a relatively contemporary TV show that is quite inherently silly. To see that be used as a metatextual backbone to a story is very odd, but I kind of liked how weird that was.
And also, it's worth pointing out as well that like Elizabeth Olsen, who plays Wanda, just her acting is incredible in this series. Like and nailing each of the different styles is it's just so fun. It's such a joy to watch every week. But yeah, there is at the end of the it's like the Full House episode, I guess, that Wanda and Vision have a massive fight, and then there's a knock at the door, and they open it, and Pietro, her brother Quicksilver, appears, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, he's been recast, and he's now played by Evan Peters, who played him in the Fox films, and like the X-Men films. So this, being a very sort of like, oh my god, the now that Disney's bought Fox is officially canon. The Fox films are officially canon, and they're officially in the MCU. I
dare say it was a watershed moment for media. Like this one of the biggest deals in filmmaking history for better or worse, probably for worse, happened with Disney buying Fox, and then we have this moment where that officially bleeds into the entertainment we consume, and it was like, damn, like I felt a little like profound watch it when he shows up at the door, because it's like it kind of felt like it represented the world changing in a bit of a way,
But yeah, in the final episode though, a much maligned decision is that it's revealed that the Westview is essentially Wanda has brainwashed this entire small town to live out her sitcom fantasy. And these people are like aware that it's like they're in like the sunken place and Get Out. It's that kind of thing where these people are still aware of what's happening to them, but are being psychologically tortured. And Pietro, or Evan Peters, is actually just a dude called Ralph Boner, who just happens to look exactly like the Fox Quicksilver. So I know, AJ, you think this is one of the greatest casting decisions in the MCU. Is that right?
No. For context, if you're not the two people who'll know what Richard is talking about, someone on our Discord erroneously declared that I would consider the Ralph Boner plot twist to be genius, unprecedented in the MCU or something like that. Which, to be fair, I can understand why someone might think I would think that. I do like my subversive wasp nest kicks in movies and TV shows. But this I just thought was so weird, like because essentially they cast Evan Peters. They could have cast anyone. It didn't need to be Evan Peters.
Well, so that's my I think the Ralph Boner reveal is a bit silly, but I think that it doesn't need to be canonizing the Fox movies, because, and I would argue they had to cast Evan Peters because the idea is that she opens the door and she sees someone who is her brother but doesn't look like him. And there's exactly one person in the entire world that you could cast in that role so the audience has the same reaction as Wanda, and that's Evan Peters.
I guess
so. I would argue the casting of Evan Peters was actually the most important thing.
You thought it was a genius, unprecedented move in the
MCU.
I think I understand. That's a really, really great defense of a hated plot point in this show. I think, and that's really interesting. I think I think you're risking so much by going down that path, and I think people saw it as insulting to. And first of all, I don't actually care if the MCU and the X-Men, the established X-Men movies, cross over. I actually don't think they should, and so I'm not one of those people who are like, this has to happen. But to see it teased and then treated like the audience being treated like we're stupid for thinking that's what it was, when even like the biggest nail in the coffin was if you watched that episode with the like vision impaired commentary on. Do you know about this? You can watch things where like a voice will tell you what's happening on screen while it's happening. And when that happened in the show, someone put on the vision impaired like commentary, and the voice is like, she opens the door and sees her brother Pietro, but it is not the Pietro you may be familiar with. It is the Pietro from the X-Men films. You know, so like it expressly says it, meaning that, you know, Marvel, this obviously they were aware of what they were doing, but they were aware of what they were doing to the point where they wanted you to think something to then be like, it's actually not what you thought. Surprise.
And also, it's boner is a funny word.
Yeah, and also, and it's. I think it's so dangerous to give people something, to not give the audiences what they want and give them something worse, something they don't want instead. And I say that being someone who didn't want the X-Men to cross over, so I'm not personally offended by it. I just think it was cruel to those that did want it.
Yeah, I think that you... Like, because I like the whole thing of like, you know, they want to have... But I think it's like, you don't need to have a character be recast. I don't think that was a trope they needed to address, because it doesn't really pay off. It's like I think you needed Aaron Taylor Johnson. Like, it's clear that Aaron Taylor Johnson just didn't want to be a part of this,
right? Interesting.
And because there's moments where she has a flash, a vision of his like bullet riddled chest, and I think those visions needed to be played by Aaron Taylor Johnson for the recasting thing to work.
Were they not?
No, he doesn't appear at all in the show. No. And so
okay.
I think, to for her to reconcile with the fact that her mind has recast Pietro, you need Aaron Taylor Johnson to also appear. And I think that this, to me, just screamed, we couldn't get him, but here's a cooler idea of having the Fox guy show up, but then not being able to make that work. I mean,
so it was almost like reverse engineered so that they didn't realize the carrot they were dangling until they'd gotten established that through a different way.
Which is interesting with this show as well, because it's something like, obviously Marvel fans are like the most fucking rabid dogs in media consumption. And it's interesting watching because obviously like we saw this with No Way Home and stuff like that, where it's just like, you know, so much speculation on the internet and just openly discussing leaks and stuff like that. But it's really interesting watching like that fan base watching something week to week, because also these series were done in the Disney Plus release model, not the Netflix release model of one episode a week, apart from the first two. And so like being a part of or seeing that like rabid discussion and theorizing and everything, and I think that was why people ultimately left the show somewhat disappointed, because like during it, like the show, it was like, this was like the most exciting thing, just like every episode was just like little extra pieces to a mystery.
And I'd say none of the other MCU shows achieved that either. Like, this is the only one.
I actually think people were burnt by WandaVision and didn't do that so much. But also, like, WandaVision is centered around a mystery. And so that is something that you want to solve as well.
Oh, but there's still, like, you know, who is this character that they keep talking about in Falcon and the Winter Soldier and stuff.
Yeah, sure. But, like, one of the main things that if you cast your mind back about this show was the idea that Mephisto would show up at some point. Like it was one of those things that in the 9 week or the 8 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever, that this show aired, that people it started out as like a real fan theory of like, I reckon Mephisto was going to show up. Mephisto being like sort of the MCU's version of the devil, or the Marvel's version of the devil. That, and everyone was like, no, there's all these clues to Mephisto, and then that reached such a like tipping point that then midway through the series, it was like a joke. It was a meme that Mephisto would appear, and then by the end, it was like you were actually stupid if you ever thought Mephisto would appear, and like it became this huge thing. And then like Jack Schaefer, the writer or
one of the
creator,
writers, yeah.
The head writer, was like, I have no idea who Mephisto is, and I didn't know that we were teasing him. Apparently, there was also a lot of theories that Doctor Strange would appear at some point because you've got, they're dealing with magic and stuff, and Elizabeth Olsen confirmed to appear in Multiverse of Madness, so it seemed like those two. And apparently he did have a cameo, but it had to be cut, or like they couldn't film it because of COVID.
Well, because the commercials that break up the show, the like fictional commercials, were supposed to be Doctor Strange intercepting the Vision, the TV show, which I thought was interesting because those commercials now stand in the show with zero explanation. They're the only thing that exists purely for the audience and not for the characters experiencing them, and so it's interesting to have not explained them. I think it's very strange. My favorite Doctor Strange related fan theory was when they, for some reason, re-uploaded a newer version of the final, like quietly, so that no one would notice. And then everyone thought they could see a cloaked figure moving down the mountains towards the cabin in the final moments of the series where Wanda now is in hiding. And what's so funny about that is that it's clearly a And if you're a video editor like you and I are, you would watch this immediately and be like, "That's a Matt." But like, I'm assuming most Marvel fans maybe aren't video editors, so they were like, "It's a weird shape moving down the mountains." What it is, for those who never found out the answer to this, is it's when the shot comes to a static, when it stops moving, when it stops zooming in, the shape you're seeing down the mountain perfectly fits a frame, like a window pane. And so what it is that obviously...
They had a bit of glare on it.
They had a bit, or you could see the cameraman in it or something like that. And so they covered it over with what's called a matte, which is essentially like blurring it, but then forgot to put it in there or track it in there from the beginning of the shot, which starts all far back zoom. Because if you watch that scene and you look for the supposed Doctor Strange cloaked figure moving down the mountain, if you point to it, it doesn't move on the screen. It looks like it's moving.
Behind
it's because the screen's moving. And it's so funny that people thought that was Doctor Strange. But then the trailer for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness came out and was showing where he meets Wanda. I mean, it may as well have been him. it may as well have been. But I thought that was such a funny aspect of it. One thing I did like about this series, Richard, is its episode titles. Probably the most imaginative episode titles of any of the shows. The first episode's called Filmed Before a Live Studio Audience. Episode 2 is called Don't Touch That Dial. Episode 3 is called Now in Color. Episode 4 is called We Interrupt This Program, which is my favorite thing about that concept that I didn't like. The next one is On a Very Special Episode. Then the next one is All New Halloween Spooktacular. Then Breaking the Fourth Wall, Previously On, and the series finale. Great work on the titles team. Best thing about the show.
Yeah. Also, it's worth pointing out that we meet Monica Rambeau in this series, who becomes a superhero by the end of it, and is going to be in the Marvels TV show. Okay. Which is the movie.
I always lose track of where we're going to see these characters again, all these new introduced characters. So ultimately, and for those who never saw it, basically this show is the first few 5 to 6 episodes are these send-ups of sitcom tropes and stuff, and a really interesting exploration into the history of sitcoms, something the MCU didn't necessarily need to touch on, but go for your life. And then it becomes all of that is dropped for a very MCU CGI fight in the sky in the series finale, and it just left me very conflicted because it's hard I've tried to rank these with the movies on my MCU ranking,
which I think is insane,
and I've also rated them on Letterboxd and stuff, and I think I gave WandaVision 3 stars, which is so weird because episodes like all new Halloween Spooktacular, I'd probably give a lot higher.
Mm.
But it's because you're rating what is essentially several shorter movies as one thing. It becomes it takes it down a bit, and it's just weird to be like this incredibly imaginative show with some really interesting ideas, and I've given such a middling rating to, because I just was so disappointed by how generic the ending was. So I don't know. Will that happen again? Will we see something similar happen with one of these other shows? That's the question. Yes,
well,
we
we'll
will.
get to that in a little bit. All right, yeah, WandaVision. The other thing I just wanted to quickly mention as well, just I remember talking about the theories and stuff that because there was a lot of talk of like there's a cameo coming, and then ended up being Evan Peters, and then and Paul Bettany, who plays Vision.
Yeah.
Talked about like there's a scene coming up where I got to work with an actor I've wanted to work with my entire life, and people were going through his entire filmography and being like, well, it can't be Benedict Cumberbatch because they're technically in Infinity War together, but they don't have any scenes together, and like people, it must be this, and then at the end of episode 8 there's a mid-credit scene, and the sort of villain of Sword activates their version of the Vision, which is this all-white reassembled body, and then it was like, he's going to be fucking talking about himself, isn't he? And then in the final episode, there's this scene where Paul Bettany faces off, the Wanda's Vision faces off with the White Vision, and they talk about the ship of Theseus and whatnot, and then the White Vision disappears, which is like a sort of a loose thread left dangling. But it is real funny that, like, and in interviews, and Paul Bettany being like, I didn't think people would think that much of it. I was being cheeky. Like,
the worst thing on the subject of like fan expectations, something which ultimately like really did the show a disservice. I think it started this conversation on what fans expect from their content. But the worst case of this, a rare example where I actually agree with the fan outrage, was they talked in the show about, what was it? It was like a physicist or something. Early on, they mentioned, is it a physicist?
Yeah, some kind of scientist.
Yeah, they mention that there's someone that they're going to talk to, and everyone was like, who's it gonna be? It's gonna be Mr. Fantastic. Like, everyone had all these ideas over who this mysterious key player was going to be in taking down Wanda's mind palace. And then it ended up just being a guy. And it was underplayed. And at the time, I remember the director or someone was like, hey, it's your fault for expecting it to be this. And apparently, like, it was going to be someone, but then they felt they were cramming too much cameo into it. I just want to say, if you had said, oh, I've got a physicist friend, the way it's framed in the show.
It's done like 3 times.
It's done like 3 times. The way it's framed in the show,
and it's like never
textbook.
says his name, but it's like, I've got this friend we could see. Yeah,
it is textbook setting up, and that to me, like the Mephisto thing. I don't know who Mephisto is, and I was very out of the loop with the Mephisto expectations, so that didn't affect me at all. But if you could watch the show without reading any fan comments and expect that character to be pretty significant.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so dishonest of the creators to be like, hey, you shouldn't expect things, it's not our fault. It's like, you made it sound like, anyway.
Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah, that was fucking weird. So that's WandaVision. I also think that by the end of it, 9 episodes ended up being a bit much, I thought. It's the what if, will say 9 episodes, but all the rest had 6.
I think WandaVision, like, I wish they'd found a way to keep that sitcom style still going. Even if, like, the final episode was like a merging of them all during the fight, like if it went black and white while they're fighting in the sky, and so, like that not only does that like would make sense narratively, it means you're also not sacrificing that stylistic thing that everyone was praising it for. That's what I would have done to fix the finale. You can still have it be a CGI fight in the sky. It should just be flicking back and forth. You could call the episode Clip Show, like you could call it the best of or something, greatest hits. Like it's such a I mean, obviously, it would take you'd need to plan to film it that way, but it's just
Yeah, well,
so
like you would do
weird
it like, that you smash into a house and that house is in the 60s. And
totally,
then,
yeah. That would have been so much better, eh? Like that way,
absolutely.
you end the final still keeping the gimmick of the show intact, which so many shows, MCU or not, fail to do. I find. Just finished rewatching Lost, and it pisses me off how many episodes towards the end don't have a central character, aren't like character centric, when like every single one before season 5 is. It pisses me off. Find a way to do it. You have a format. You need to squeeze your story into that format, in my opinion, in the TV show.
So next we had the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and this was like a lot of people were like, yeah, I mean, WandaVision was an event, but Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be like, yeah, whatever. And because I think just it's being a lot more grounded, and then the show started, and I was like, hot take, I think this might be better than WandaVision. And then it finished, and I was like,
I feel exactly the same way about WandaVision as I do about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That was my reveal. Where I agree. The first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I was like, oh wow, this is quite mature, quite good, and like, I personally am so fascinated by the idea of the blip of Thanos snapping everyone away for 5 years, and because I want to see a whole TV show dealing with a concept like that. It doesn't even need to be in the MCU. Just like, what does a world do when half the universe was disappeared for 5 years? Like the ramifications of that, I think, are still frankly unexplored in the MCU and will continue to be unexplored, I think, because they want to do their own stories that aren't shackled by lore. But this one does deal with a lot of blip fallout, and there's revolutionaries and all this sort of thing. And I was really interested in the way it was going. As it goes on, I started to struggle because the characters who I probably politically identified with the most were the villains, but it's like they're only the villains because they have an ideology that I agree with, but then you also just have them blow up innocent people. Like, that
and be terrible actors and stuff like that.
like that's one of those things where it's like it's corporate Disney, like making it sound like being a communist activist is a bad thing because you're also giving them things which aren't inherent to that worldview, which is pretty unfair. But then it would do things like again, full spoilers for the show. Then it would do things like what was his name? Isaiah Bradley, who's a African American super soldier from the like, I think World War II, who like has basically lived his life hiding from getting caught again.
Yeah, who is the exact same origin story as Captain America, essentially.
Yeah, but was black and so treated a lot worse. And one of the episodes, he says to Falcon, he says, they will never let a black man be Captain America, because the whole story is about
Falcon was given the shield, and it's the ramifications of that.
And I was like, Jesus Christ, I cannot believe that line is in this show. What an incredible piece of dialogue. What an incredible idea to communicate, which because it feels like they're talking not only about the fictional world, but like Disney, like fans, like it feels so self-scolding, self-critical of the MCU to have a line. I couldn't believe that line was in it.
So let's just go over what the show is about. So it's 6 months after the blip. Sam Wilson is publicly given the shield, and he rejects it. He hands it back over to the government and says, like, put this on display. And meanwhile, Bucky is, aka the Winter Soldier, is trying to make amends and return to a normal life. And then there's this group, the Flag Smashers, who believe that life was better during the blip because the countries essentially had no borders. I think was a large part of their ideology. But then after Sam has given up the shield, the government appoints a new Captain America, a guy called John Walker, who is played by Wyatt Russell, and is a white man, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So then the show, that they investigate the Flag Smashers. A lot of it's just sort of investigating that, while meanwhile dealing with the government-appointed Captain America, who's also trying to stop them and all this stuff. And yeah, there's the subplot about Isaiah Bradley, which was my favorite part of the show. And then they run into Sharon Carter as well, and then while also trying to investigate this mysterious power broker, and then they also team up with Baron Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl, who was fun to have back.
Forgot he was in it. I felt like he was so inconsequential to the show ultimately.
Yeah, but he was fun. But then it's John Walker goes nuts, and in what I was like, fuck man, this show's much better than WandaVision. There's like a scene where his sort of sidekick gets killed, and John Walker, who secretly took the super soldier serum, just like brutally murders this unarmed flag smasher in front of like a group of bystanders who film him. And there's the shot, the final episode of the final shot of the episode is him just standing there. It's a low angle shot, and the shield is just splattered with blood. And I was like, God, this is like going to be the most enduring image from this series.
Well, it's also on foreign soil as well, and was a big it was essentially like, it felt very post Black Lives Matter, and like the Black Lives Matter protest, because it was like, what if Captain America was a cop?
Yeah.
and and it felt like it was dealing with themes and ideas that I would have thought very innocently that Marvel were too scared to even touch. But they dive into them in a way that I was admiring it quite a lot because of that. And then the final episode happened, and I think it's probably the worst story that's been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far.
Yeah, so everything sort of comes to a head. The big battle. Yeah, so the head of the Flag Smashers is a woman called Carly Morgenthau. She ends up getting killed. And
Does she? I don't remember.
But
that.
so the whole series is like, oh, should I be Captain America? Should I not? And like you said, like one thing I really loved about this is like early on, they sort of talk about like, look, Steve was a great dude, but he and like Bucky says this to Sam, is that like, look, Steve was pretty much perfect in every way, but he the way he looked at the world, he didn't understand what it meant to give a black man that shield. And it's like, and like after his death, acknowledging that like, yes, Steve had white privilege.
Yeah, exactly.
As interesting. But yeah, so like the whole thing is like, is he going to take up the shield? Is he not? Or like, what's going to happen? And then the finale happens, and he just shows up fully kitted out as Captain America. And then he gives this really bad speech to everyone, being like, hey, you know how you were just held prisoner?
Yeah.
And you're like, that's how black people feel every day. So the more you know.
It's so ham-fisted, and it feels like the rest of the show was written by someone who understood this stuff, and then someone who had a peripheral understanding came in and wrote the finale. Because here it is. Here is my least favorite thing that has ever happened in the MCU. Something that I think is borderline unfixable and has kind of sullied the whole franchise for me. Is I thought that John Walker was an excellent villain. Maybe one of the best we've seen in Marvel because
for a lot of it as well, he's not necessarily a bad guy.
Exactly.
He's just someone who's unaware of his privilege.
And that's what's so goddamn compelling about him, right?
Yeah. And terrifying about him.
And terrifying. And then he kills a guy on foreign soil, and there's that shot of him like lifting the shield where he looks terrifying, and you go, oh my god, he's a cop. It's a cop. It's a cop, right? And the show is it's almost too clear on that point that it's saying like, this is what America thinks of itself. This is Captain America, you know?
Yeah.
And he ends up teaming up with Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, and she basically he gets like dishonored and fired from being
he gets an honorable discharge
and all this sort of thing, and then teams up with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, where it really feels like a really complicated, despicable villain is getting developed. One that is maybe a little too intense for superhero movies. And then in the final episode, he has the choice between, what is it? There's a car falling off a parking building, or him getting the chance to get away, or something like that. And and he goes for the car and saves it. And basically the episode, quote unquote, redeems him. And I was like, what the fuck? This whole show has been a cab, and then the last episode is not all cops. Like it felt so fundamentally misunderstood. And I remember, the director was like, I think people wanted to see John Walker. They liked him and they wanted to see him get a redemption. And that like quote was all over Twitter. People be like, what? like I liked the character because of how evil he was, and well, not evil, but like how complicated the morals and ethics were with his character. I thought it was a insanely excellent and mature piece of storytelling to do this within the MCU. Like, again, like so much of the show feels like it's too smart or too mature for the MCU, including the treatment of that character. And I just can't believe they redeemed him. They even set him up with Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character to be like,
and he gets a new identity by the end of it, the US agent.
The US agent, and like I think like people have talked about like he's going to be a character in like a Dark Avengers kind of story or what. That's all great. I can't believe he was even in the final episode. He shouldn't have been in it. You could have left his story at episode 5 and not have him be in the final. It wouldn't have necessarily made the final any better. But I couldn't believe they built up this complex, morally bankrupt, privileged character who like, it's very rare you get a villain where you're like, I totally get your perspective and why you would think you're the good guy. And then to give him a comic book movie redemption, I thought was pathetic.
Well, because the idea is like, so, and I don't know much about US Agent, to be fair, but like, so his part in the finale is he shows up to the final battle, which is Captain America and now Sam and the Winter Soldier, like fighting the Flag Smashers or whatever, and then he shows up to be like, and you got to deal with me, and then he ends up being like, oh, I'm going to save this car of people. Don't worry, Captain America, I'm here at your service. And I think you can still have him show up in the finale, but like be an antagonistic force. I don't have an issue with him like saving a car full of people. And I think that's maybe, where you introduce that he becomes more like a Venom kind of anti-hero, where it's like, well, he hates Captain America or something, or he's willing to do the things that heroes aren't, but he ultimately
is pardoned. He's pardoned.
Yeah, he's pardoned, but he's like, so he could show up to the final battle and save a car full of people, realize that like, oh fuck, like these guys are the villains. Like, he sees Captain America and the Winter Soldier as the villains, but then he's like, fuck, these guys are actually way worse. I'm going to stop them, but that doesn't mean I have to help these guys, because for me, it's the fact that he then just goes like, whatever you need, Cap, I'm on your side.
Yeah, sure.
Like, like that's what I don't have an issue with him saving something, and I think that him having that moment of realization is a good thing for that character.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But yeah, it's just it's such an immediate, he's on our side now, and that's like it's such a weirdly written finale where it's like they've just got these like, it was so rushed, and like going into the finale, I was like, fuck, I mean, if they can nail this finale, this is going to be like miles better than WandaVision in my eyes. And now I think it's like,
I probably prefer WandaVision.
Yeah, they both have the same sort of arc of quality, but WandaVision at least had these really interesting mysteries and swung for the fences in its first few episodes. But weird episode. But also this Falcon Winter Soldier is the most sort of, if you look at the criticism of the Marvel TV shows, because, going to Marvel TV shows, people were like, am I going to be able to just watch the movies and not and not have to watch the TV shows because, TV shows are a lot more of a time investment. And they said, no, things will happen, will affect each other. But the thing with Falcon and the Winter Soldier is, so where do we leave Sam in Endgame? He was given the shield. He was given the shield, and you go, okay, well, next time I see him, he's going to be Captain America. And then we get a show, and it's like, okay, something different has to happen. He ends the show in the exact same place I would expect to have seen him without the show.
Yeah, and you can not watch the show and still watch the Captain America 4.
Yeah, you're not going to be like, why is he Captain America now? Because you were shown in the movie that he got given the shield. But I actually think this show would be a lot better if it came out after we saw him as Captain America again.
Right.
If it was like, because they are making a Captain America 4 with the writer or director of the show. But I think if there was like an Avengers movie, or if he showed up to help out in Shang-Chi or whatever, and then we see this, I think this would actually do the show a lot better, because it's like, here's we've shown point A is him giving the shield in the end of Endgame, and we've shown point B is him fully kitted out as Captain America, and it's like, well, how did we get here? But instead it's like, well, why are you making a show if we know the end point? And it's like, well, if that's the point of the show, is that you do know the end point, then that kind of solves that issue.
So, and as well, another weird criticism I think is, like, I barely remember what Bucky does in this series. It's so much more favorable of the Falcon than the Winter Soldier. I probably am more compelled by the Falcon as a character, but like it feels and like the fact that a Captain America's been announced, and it's like it's not a Winter Soldier movie that's been announced, because I don't think they mastered the two protagonist show. I think it felt a lot more like a Falcon show than a Winter Soldier show, for better or worse.
But it's interesting. So at the end of the show, it goes like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it comes out in title card, and then it changes where it says the Falcon, changes to Captain America and the Winter Soldier, which is like the whole show is about Bucky trying to leave the title of Winter Soldier behind, and that he's more than this like mindless killing machine. And then they're just like, And that day the Falcon grew up to be Captain America, and you're still the Winter Soldier. Like, I'm still always going to think that of you.
It's also weird to see that appear on screen, because that's basically the title of Captain America 2.
Yeah.
It's just like another movie's title pops up.
Yeah, I will say as well. So we were introduced back to Agent 13, Emily Van Camp, Peggy, Sharon Carter, and then we're also like, there's this mysterious villain named the Power Broker. So fucking obviously, it's Sharon.
It's so, and on the Wikipedia page, it just says that. It's just Emily Van Camp is Sharon Carter / Power Broker.
But yeah, like it was, and then it's revealed to be her at the end, and it's like, didoi. It's so fucking. And it's one of these things where it feels like one of those things where they were like, oh, Emily Van Camp, sorry you were done dirty in Winter Soldier and Civil War. Come back for this and we'll give you like a really meaty role. And she'd be like, oh, I'm so glad to play a villain and like really flex my chops. And it's like, she didn't sell it at all, I don't think. And the reveal that she's the Power Broker is like, yeah, obviously, like, and it's just another thing in making the finale just fucking messy.
And lastly, the last thing I want to take issue with was Don Cheadle got a Golden Globe nomination for his 98-second scene in this TV show. Isn't that insane? Why the hell was he nominated? It's so weird. Even he was like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it was very funny. The other thing that I guess is worth mentioning as well is that apparently this series has like a deleted storyline.
Yeah, because it was going to be about a pandemic, or the risk of a pandemic.
Yeah, or like a virus being released or something. Yeah.
It's on the MCU iceberg chart of the deleted Falcon and the Winter Soldier storyline. It's so obvious because they make it like tuberculosis or something, like an established
the tuberculosis vaccine or something.
Yeah, and it's not as focused on. But yeah, very strange show. Maybe one of the strangest shows I've seen in a long time. Not intentionally strange, just like the forces at work making a show which has these poignant, self-critical statements on race and how media and and global like authority treat race, but then will also be like, you've got to learn to be a good person, Senator, and that's all I need to do is tell a senator that he's being racist, and that'll stop him.
Yeah.
That'll stop him from being racist.
So that's the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Again, 3 stars from me. Like, some 5-star content in a show I ultimately have to package as a 3-star thing.
Also, I think the Falcon and Winter Soldier suffered from being only 6 episodes. While I think WandaVision suffered from being dragged out to 9, I think Falcon and Winter Soldier could have had another episode. Or just... Because, like, Falcon and Winter Soldier don't appear together in the first episode, which I actually kind of liked. I thought that was, like, an interesting decision to start your series. But then when you realize, like, we're a sixth of the way through this show and the characters haven't met yet.
Yeah, I actually got to the end of episode 5 and then someone was like, next week's the final, and I was like, like, I was not expecting, I wasn't ready for a final.
All right, that's Falcon Winter Soldier. Next up is a show called Loki. So Loki came out in June. And consisted of 6 episodes as well. And yeah, this follows on after the events of Avengers Endgame, where Loki took the Space Stone and fucking went wiggity whack out of
Yep. Go on.
But yes, he's caught by the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, and is in the first episode is forced to undergo several years of character development, because this is of course the Loki from 2012 who was the villain of the Avengers, not the good guy who'd gone through the events of Thor 2, Thor Ragnarok, and Infinity War. But essentially they just like said, here's an episode, and now he is that Loki again, because they show him
Avengers. They show him movies. Yeah.
They sit him down and watch the MCU. But yeah, we have quite fun in this. We have Owen Wilson as Mobius in Mobius, who sort of has like has his handler sort of thing. But yeah, what's the sort of overall plot of this show?
So yeah, he gets, because he's like out of time and should have died in a different timeline, he is apprehended by the Time Variance Authority, who are an outside of time and space organization who essentially maintain what they call as the sacred timeline. Because if things dip from the sacred timeline too much, then the multiverses explode in all-out war, and Loki basically wants to test that theory and see, and he wants to visit, what is it, the Timekeepers or something? Is that who it is? And kill them so that he can take over, because he seeks glorious purpose. And along the way, they're supposed to be like taking down other Lokis and other universes, other timelines, including one who goes by Sylvie, who is a female Loki, and Loki and Sylvie end up teaming up, possibly falling in love. And what I thought was great, and a lot of people were like, that's disgusting, and I was like, no, it should have been kinkier. It should have been weirder. I kind of wish they kind of went like, yeah, they're the same person, but don't think about that. I wish they made us have to think about it.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot more typical of Loki's character to make him be like, no, he is a narcissist, and this is what happens when a narcissist falls in love with himself. Anyway, they end up going to like the end of time or something, where they meet Kang the Conqueror, who doesn't go by that name, but basically says, if you kill me...
he's not actually technically Kang.
Okay. He's a variant of Kang.
He's a variant of Kang called He Who Remains.
And he says, if you kill me, the timelines will explode. And so they kill him and the timelines explode. And then it goes, surprise, bitch, this show's getting a second season.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, one thing that I think we should start off talking about, that I know we sort of both felt, is that like this has such a rich premise of like Loki taking down Loki variants across time, and by the second episode they've run that to the ground. Well, they haven't run it to the ground. They've done the first one of that, and then they go, that's it. He's found the main variant,
yeah.
and that's no longer the plot of the show. And it's like, this could have been your entire season 1 could have been a procedural. And it's like,
Precisely.
and I would have liked to see, because WandaVision like sends up sitcom tropes, and like really, because they talk about like Marvel movies are different, genres. Like this, Ant-Man's a heist movie, Winter Soldier's a political thriller. That like this like. WandaVision is a sitcom, and this one should be a procedural.
So I personally believe that this could have been probably 10 episodes longer, and I would put those in between episode 1 and 2. I think the idea of a procedural show where Loki goes around apprehending other Lokis is a fantastic story engine for a TV show. And it's so weird that they created that and then didn't do anything with it. I really liked the show. This is my favorite of the shows, right? This is the most consistent one.
It's not a hot take to say this is the best one. Like this is, most people sort of agree this is the best, and some people even say it's crazy how this is still the best one, which I think is insane. And I hate when the PSA stop saying it's crazy that things are still something when it's only been a couple of months. It's
also
not crazy.
Just arrogant to do that when it's just like your subjective opinion, I think.
Yeah. But it's like...
crazy how Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies were the best ones.
It's crazy Loki held on to the title for there was 2 other things that came after it.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, it's not crazy that something was better than 2 things.
So, that's my main criticism of the show, is that it should have been much longer and enjoyed its premise a little more. And you can introduce Sylvie earlier and have that be like a ongoing through line that they know who Sylvie is. Like, it doesn't have to be she's not revealed until halfway through the series.
Well, yeah, it could be that like, we've got there's a Loki variant in 73 AD.
Yeah.
And they're like, could this be her? And they're like, we're gonna go find out. And then maybe every now and then it is.
Because don't they establish as well that she's jumping through apocalypses as well?
Yeah, so that's what they do. That's like, because essentially anytime she shows up, it creates her actions affect the timeline, and that they can look for those. And so Loki realizes, well, if it was me hiding out, I would hide at various apocalyptic events, because nothing I do would change the timeline because it's about to be destroyed. So they go to Pompeii, and yeah, and then they find her in a hurricane in 2050.
Yeah, you can also explore that, I guess, which is interesting. Yeah, so I really liked a lot of the visuals. I love the theme music. I thought was excellent. Some of the best music that's been in the MCU. Again, I would say that the final is probably the weakest episode, if only because a lot of it is a big conversation. But it's not too bad. It's not as like offensive as Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's definitely better written, and I think a lot like, because when I do have a favorite finale in these, and when I sort of say that all the finales have been bad, like people are like, oh, Loki's was good. And it's like, it was good, but it wasn't
It's
really...
still probably the weakest episode of the series.
Yeah, and it's not like super consistent with the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Where it's just like... I do like the fact that they subvert it, and it's like just a big conversation, and it's like, it's an interesting way to lead. But I thought... and Jonathan Majors was chewing the scenery,
really
which
good.
I enjoyed, but also thought... And I was like, I kind of don't want this guy to be our next big bad, but then he's not necessarily. So I'm sure Kang, who's appearing in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantum Mania,
as the one who remains, he seemed quite benevolent. He didn't seem like he would be the villain. It seemed like he was wise and good. What did you think of? So they go to the end of time where a bunch of Lokis have. It turns out that that's where they've been sent, and when you get what's it called? Pruned. When you get pruned, you're actually sent to the edge of time. What did you think of all the different variants of Lokis that we see?
Yeah, so there's a classic Loki played by Richard E. Grant. There's a kid Loki, and most funly, an alligator Loki. It was great, and I think classic Loki was a great inclusion. And so he's a Loki who escaped death by Thanos and then just hid out, but then got real lonely and tried to make contact with Thor. and that then was found and pruned.
Yeah.
Which is like it was a really interesting like insight into his character. But yeah, he sort of has this big. He creates an entire Asgard illusion, which shows how powerful he is, and then sacrifices himself. And I thought, for showing up in a mid-credit scene of episode 4 and then most of episode 5 was a great little.
Well, that's just the Richard E. Grant style, baby. That's just the power of Richard E. Grant. Yeah, I loved that as well. And like when he's like building the Citadel, and he's like, glorious purpose. Glorious purpose is such a great kind of like
catchphrase.
It's not a catch tagline or slogan, but philosophy for a character to have to be looking for glorious purpose. I think is very fun. This is the first MCU thing that am I right? This is the first MCU thing we see that truly.
No, there was Iron Man back.
Sure, that truly deals with the idea of a multiverse. This is. It's talked about in Far From Home, but is revealed to not be true. And then we get this, and then What If, and then Spider-Man No Way Home. Is it all the same thing? The way that each thing deals with the idea of a multiverse feels like they weren't talking to the other guys necessarily about it.
Yeah, a little bit, I think probably Multiverse of Madness, you'd have to assume, would sort of tie everything together.
Well, if that's the case, there's one thing I want answered that has been unanswered across all the multiverse media we've seen so far. Why are some of the Lokis played by Tom Hiddleston and some of them aren't? But it's not like there's multiple Richard E. Grants.
Yeah.
It's not like there are a handful of people that Loki will look like in different universes. They all look different, but several of them are Tom Hiddleston, and also like when you've got someone like Sylvie, who's like the big deal is that she's the only woman Loki.
One of them is an alligator.
That's true. Yeah, that's almost more interesting than there being a woman Loki. But she doesn't go by Loki. She goes by Sylvie. She looks completely different and is ostensibly her own person. And I was watching the show and I was just like, what makes them the same person? Like, it would make more sense if like the actress that they hired to play Sylvie looked like a female version of Tom Hiddleston. Which I don't think would be very hard to cast. There's probably several people who look like that. And I'm just like struck with, and it's the same in, obviously this probably wasn't even considered by the writing team, but in Spider-Man No Way Home, why does J. Jonah Jameson look the same in MCU universe and the Maguire universe? These things aren't really, but then in What If, everyone looks exactly they're played by the same actors. I want some lore or some explanation stitched around this, because I liked seeing like the character that like Tom Hiddleston play a more like gaudy Loki at the end of time in the second last episode, where he's the like one that has like the president button on and he gets his hand bitten off by the alligator. I liked seeing him play that character, and if the show had been the 16, 17, 18 episode long procedural that I wanted it to be, I would want Tom Hiddleston to play all those variants in various episodes. But why? Why do some of them look like him, and some of them are alligators, and some of them are women, and some of them are black? Like, what is the point? What is the idea, I guess?
Yeah, I've just realised where I finally figured out where I know Sylvie from.
Okay.
And, I looked this up and somehow, like, didn't get it at the time. But, in Yesterday...
Mm-hmm.
The film, when he first plays the song Yesterday after he's woken up, and his friends are all like, "What did you write that?" And he's like, "It's one of the greatest songs ever written." And one of the friends is like, "Well, it's not Coldplay, it's Sylvie."
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
nice.
So that's a fun little realization I had. But yeah, no, I agree. But then it's like the show was still good, so it's like,
these aren't even complaints. I'm just waiting for an explanation in universe to be given to me.
Yeah. I think, it sort of does try to explain why Sylvie's... but it's... I also thought she was great as well.
Yeah, totally.
not just woke trash, which is good.
Yeah, I think that this is a really good series, if a little short. It's the one. It's fun. It's probably the one I'd change the most, just because I want that procedural. But at the same time, I also thought it was the best one.
But speaking of woke trash, I'm playing with fire saying that, but we do get confirmation of this series as well that Loki's bisexual.
Of course, yeah.
Which was like a fun little line that's not dwelled on too much in true Disney fashion.
It's funny how like woke trash to some is like clearly not enough to others. If this was really woke trash, which again I probably shouldn't be using that term, you would instead of casting someone as Sylvie, you'd just have it be another Tom Hiddleston. He falls in love with a male version of himself.
Yeah, it is funny. We should try and like co-opt the term woke trash.
Right, bring it back.
Take it back for
God,
the wokes.
that'd be like 6 layers of irony then. Because like the term woke, I don't think I've ever truly used sincerely either. It's always been like, because other people call it this, I'm just trying to explain what I think is being an enlightened good person. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you have much more you want to say about Loki?
No, but that is typical of the better ones having less to say about, I guess.
Going into the series, I was kind of weirdly least interested in Loki. And a lot of people were like, yeah, this is the one I'm really holding out for. And I think there's still that little bit of like disassociation with me for Loki that some people are like, Loki's the fucking best thing I've seen on TV all year. And I'm like, it doesn't 100% do it for me. I did really like it. But again, it's that sort of Marvel thing of like, I was whelmed. Like I was expecting it to be good and it was good. So I'm not like blown away by it.
I think it's stylistically feels the closest to the Avengers out of all the shows so far, and so I think that's why people probably resonated with it, because it feels like it's one of the big ones. Also, the cast is really good. Other than Sylvie, you've also got Owen Wilson, who's I thought was really, really good in this. Owen Wilson,
Owen Wilson's such brilliant casting because like he plays a character who's like just a bureaucrat at the TVA, and if I was casting that role, Owen Wilson is the last person I would think of. You know, like I don't. It's such an inspired piece of casting, and I don't know why you would think Owen Wilson for that role, but it's like it's perfect for it. Like I would have cast, like so a more like hard-boiled detective-y kind of guy.
Michael Chiklis.
Yeah.
Glad I was able to pull a random example as funny as Michael Chiklis out of nowhere.
But the thing I will say that about it being about Loki is that talked about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is burdened by the fact that it has to end in a very specific place because we're going to see him again in the movies. And I think Loki really benefits from the fact that it's a separate adventure. It's Loki is skewing off the main timeline and can go do his stuff, and so that's the reason it's of the live action ones. It's the only one that's confirmed to get a season 2. I mean, we are getting a Captain America movie, but that it's confirmed to just continue the same storyline, and I think that's really because
it's the opposite loophole of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Because the loophole of Falcon and the Winter Soldier is you don't have to watch the series to understand where Captain America 4 will pick up. And this is, you just don't have to watch the series. The MCU will go on and exist without ever needing to cross paths with Loki outside of Jonathan Majors playing Kang, I guess.
And even then, I'm sure we'll get it explained to us then. But yeah, Loki, good show. And now for what might be the worst one. This is a show called What If, and so this was 9 episodes long, supposed to be 10, but one was delayed and held over to the second season because of the pandemic.
The pandy.
Yeah, but I mean, this is an anthology series, so we can sort of just go through each episode and what we thought of it, and then talk at the end about.
So this is the most TV show. This is the only one you can't log on Letterboxd because it's so explicitly a TV show.
You'd have to log every episode,
and it's an animated series, which is basically like there's this big interdimensional being called the Watcher, and he's like, I see all the different timelines. And so each episode is basically, hey, what if this happened instead?
Something was slightly different.
So what if something was slightly different? And I got to say, the scenarios they pick are weird. They're not the first things that would follow. Like, if I said, what if, I think, what if the world lost its mightiest heroes would not be the next words out of my mouth. I don't know. My first criticism of the show is I think they should have been more obvious what ifs.
There was a report originally that like there would be one episode for each movie in the MCU.
Right.
And like that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and like some of the What If comics are like this as well. That it's like, yeah, whatever. So we'll just go through the episodes one by one, and we don't need to dwell on them too much. But so the first episode is called What If Captain Carter were the first Avenger? And so this is Peggy Carter is given the super soldier serum when Steve Rogers is wounded before he can take it. And then she kind of just is the same character, and I think this was a weird episode choice.
Boring episode.
A boring episode to begin with. Where it's essentially just like nothing really changes. There's this whole thing of the Tesseract opens a portal and summons a creature, but it's like Steve Rogers becomes the first Iron Man essentially, but yeah, it's such a weird, boring, like nothing changes. You won't skew off into this tangent.
Yeah, cool, Watcher. I'm so glad you showed me this universe.
Yeah, but also this feels very much like. I would almost guarantee we're going to see Captain Carter in live action.
Sure.
She seems like the one they're going all in on.
Right. Fantastic choice of all the characters.
Bad episode. Bad first episode. A week later, we had What If T'Challa became a Star-Lord? And so this is the Ravagers are sent to Earth to collect Ego's son, but then somehow mistakenly abduct T'Challa, and then he's become Star-Lord. And he highlights the episode. He managed to like just talk Thanos out of his.
I did like that. I like how dangerous that is. How much that would piss people off is like he just talked Thanos into being a good guy. Which, if anything, this episode I liked this one. This is probably my top ranking of episodes.
This is my favorite one.
I didn't love it, but I did think it was quite like. Is this saying that because Peter Quill is Star-Lord, all this shit incidentally happens? Or is it saying it's specifically T'Challa is good enough to prevent
the only one that could have done it. Yeah.
And I just felt like it was a little mean-spirited towards T'Challa for that, towards Peter Quill.
Well, I think, Thanos is pretty nerfed in this series as well. But, this is just like a fun, great little adventure, I thought. And it was nice to see T'Challa again, obviously. Chadwick Boseman passed away.
I thought it was okay. I didn't love it. I think it just didn't quite reach any interesting heights for me. It was just sort of a fun thing to see as opposed to like something intensely interesting, which I was hoping for.
So the next one is What If the World Lost Its Mightiest Heroes? So this is like a murder mystery. It's it's Fury's big week, the period of time where Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, and Thor like all happened within a week. And we have is the first appearance of what's her name? Bruce Banner's love interest.
Oh, Betty?
Yeah, Betty Ross, yeah.
All right. And it's also Mark Ruffalo playing Bruce Banner, where in the movies
that's right,
he was played by Edward Norton. I thought that was a under-commented on aspect of this. I thought it was kind of interesting.
But that's revealed that it was Hank Pym was killing everyone and with using the Ant-Man suit because Hope Van Dyne died in the line of duty as a SHIELD agent.
I thought this...
And then Loki shows up as well.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty bad. Didn't really like this. Yep. Thought it was dumb. Thought there was some really stupid ideas in it. Wasn't invested in the mystery. Thought Hank Pym showing up was unintentionally funny. Didn't like this at all.
Yeah, this is bad. Then number 4 was What If Doctor Strange had lost his heart instead of his hands?
God, what are these titles? Like, the allure of calling something What If is so that you can very eloquently and succinctly explain what you're going to see. This is so abstract.
So this one that his girlfriend Christine Palmer was in the car when he crashed and fucked up his hands. But so this time he goes to Kamar-Taj to still to learn the mystic arts, and discovering the Eye of Agamotto, decides that he can try and fucking redo time and create and so he goes back in time a bunch of times to try and save Christine, but it's like she's fated to die on this night, so she always ends up dying. But then he uses the power of the dark dimension to try and it's
an evil Doctor Strange origin story because they want to do him in the live action movies, so they gave him a cursory acknowledgement here. A lot of people like this episode. I do not like this episode.
I really like this one.
I think that, first of all, Rachel McAdams and Benedict Cumberbatch have such little chemistry, and it was a relationship I was so not at all invested in the Doctor Strange movie that, very cynically, I find it very hard to believe that her death would cause him to be this desperate to try and bring it back. I just don't believe in the relationship enough to think he would spend thousands of years trying to turning into this monster to try bring her back. I also thought that it felt like it was making really confusing what the multiverse is, because Rachel McAdams, Christine Palmer, dies in every timeline because she's destined to die, but that doesn't happen in the MCU timeline. So what is this? Is this a separate? Are timelines different from universes?
Yeah.
Does every universe have a separate timeline in it that can be adapted? Because when he was going to different timelines, I interpreted that as he's crossing different multiverses, which I don't think is that bad of a leap in a show which is about multiverses. And I just thought that made it really confusing. I didn't understand what they were talking about. But
yeah, so the end of this episode, you've got the two Doctor Strangers where they're split into a good one and an evil one. The evil one absorbed different creatures to gain power, and then it ends with the evil Doctor Strange absorbing the good Doctor Strange and then resurrecting Christine Palmer, but that destroys reality, and he begs the Watcher for help, and the Watcher refuses to intervene. And because the Watcher can't intervene, that's his whole thing. And the universe just completely collapses, and so he's the only being left in the universe, which I thought was fantastic. And I thought it was such a great dark ending. And I really liked this episode.
I like that it was a dark ending, and I can agree that there's some really cool visuals and ideas. I just thought the execution, I wasn't a big fan of.
Yeah. Fair enough. The next episode was called What If... Zombies?
Now we're in the opposite direction for the titles. Now it's too simple. So this one it's zombies. I don't feel I need to just pick a handful of random...
Well, I think it's worth pointing out. So the group of survivors, you've got Bruce Banner, Hope Van Dyne, Peter Parker, Bucky Barnes, Okoye, Sharon Carter, Happy Hogan, and Kurt.
Weird fucking episode. Weird execution, weird mix of comedy and heartbreaking drama. Scott Lang, Ant-Man's head is kept alive in a jar, which I was like, what are we watching? What is this?
Yeah.
I thought
this
was
Futurama.
Yeah, exactly. I thought this was so stupid.
I
didn't like this
essentially
at all.
they go to find the Mind Stone or something, and but there's this whole thing where the Mind Stone can reverse the virus, apparently.
Right.
And because Scott has been cured and they kept his head alive. Anyway, they go to this thing, and it ends with them heading across to Wakanda to broadcast the energy across the world, but then a zombified Thanos shows up with a nearly complete Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah, bad episode, bad.
Weird.
And then this one's getting a spin-off. There's a Marvel Zombies TV show coming. It's unclear if it'll just continue on this or if it's there's an animated Marvel Zombies show coming.
I think it's just, first of all, I saw what I thought was undeserved praise for Hudson Thames, who voices Peter Parker, doing a Tom Holland impression. I didn't think he was very good, and I also didn't think that he looked like Tom Holland. It was weird how different they made him look. in this. And it's also weird to see him be like at the start, like making like a how to survive a zombie apocalypse video, and it's like your fucking family's dead, dude.
Yeah. Well, there's also
Like-
the bit when, like Hope Van Dyne shrinks inside Sharon Carter and then explodes, and then it's like, ugh, I've got Sharon on me.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Those are your
okay,
best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird episode.
But then episode 6, we had what if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark? So this is the start of the original Iron Man, and then he is saved by Killmonger from Black Panther, and then Killmonger actually exposes Obadiah Stane before the events of Iron Man, and then him and Stark team up and they make these combat drones, and they get vibranium from Claw and stuff, and then they go to attack Wakanda. The Killmonger kills Tony, who dies in all of his appearances in What If, and then goes to attack Wakanda, and it's this whole thing, and it ends on a very like cliffhangery kind of note, like the last one,
which is weird for a show which is explicitly not going to have follow-up episodes. I
thought this one was great.
I thought this was definitely one of the better ones. I did like it. I think this probably should have been the first episode, to be honest. This feels like it's neutral enough of the concept to be the first episode, I think.
Well, and it's also like it's a what if based on the first event in the first
exactly.
MCU.
And what if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark is a good sentence. It's a sentence I understand that isn't particularly poetic or anything, and so I think that's a good place to start the series. Again, I didn't love it. I thought the cliffhanger ending was weird, and I thought that and this is a problem I'm starting to have a lot more with the MCU and had with Captain America, with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like, I just agree with Killmonger's beliefs. Like, I don't necessarily condone the killing, which again is like the writers have put that on it, but I find it very difficult to like feel like I'm supposed to see a villain in someone who I think upholds a better form of justice than the Avengers do. Or at least believes in a better form of justice than the Avengers do. But yeah, no, I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was cool to see Michael B. Jordan back.
Yeah, he's great. The next one was what if Thor were an only child? And this is essentially just...
What if that?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you.
Okay.
You interrupted me telling you to ask me again.
What if I didn't do that?
Oh my god. What if? So this is essentially like Thor just goes partying across the universe, and they have a big party on Earth, and they keep partying, and then Carol Danvers shows up, they have a big fight, and then the whole world cleans up the party because Frigga's on her way to Earth, Frigga, Thor's mum. But then an army of drones shows up led by Ultron in his vision body, and he possesses all 6 Infinity Stones, and then the episode ends. And yeah, I thought this one was bad. Some of it's fun, some of the little...
bad episode.
Yeah.
So bad. Why is the series so bad?
Yeah, I don't think we need to focus on this one, but...
I didn't even like that it ended with Ultron showing up. I was like, no, leave it as its own thing.
Yeah.
Like,
but yeah, so let's explain to the next episode, what if Ultron won? Again, it makes sense as a sentence. But yeah,
they should have all been called something like this. They should have all been titled the same style as this.
Yeah, so Ultron, it's like after he's gotten the Mind Stone and the vibranium body that he was building in Age of Ultron, and he's defeated the Avengers. There's a nuclear holocaust, which has killed most of humanity, and then Thanos appears on Earth to complete the Infinity Gauntlet, and Ultron just fucking cuts him in half and takes the rest of the Infinity Stones, and then creates this army, and then he hears the Watcher, because he's so powerful, discovering the existence of the multiverse, and then attacks the Watcher, and they have this big fucking fight. And then this very much leads into a part 2, which is the finale. And I had a chilling realization going into this, and enjoying this episode, that I was like, this show's going to end bad, because here's my reviews of the first 8 episodes in the series. Episode 1, hate. Episode 2, love. Episode 3, hate. Episode 4, love. Episode 5, hate. Episode 6, love. Episode 7, hate. Episode 8, love. And I was like, it's actually insane how specifically this is divided into every odd-numbered episode is bad and every even-numbered episode is good.
Yeah.
I know you don't necessarily agree with that, but I thought it was like the most clear-cut
I
fucking
agree.
thing.
I agree. I didn't love the ones that you loved, but I agree that those are the better episodes. This was my favorite episode, What If Ultron 1.
Yeah, this one's great.
I thought this was pretty good, and I thought that the idea it explored was worth exploring, and I like that this is the sort of like true breaking the format of the show episode where he sees the Watcher and the Watcher has to. I like when the Watcher's like, "What the hell?" That's so funny. He's got such a big head. Yeah, I don't know. I thought this was the best one, and I wish this series was 3 episodes long. Those episodes were the T'Challa one, the Killmonger rescue Tony Stark, and Ultron one. I think those are the only good episodes.
But then, sort of part 2 of this is we get, what if the Watcher broke his oath? And so we get the Guardians of the Multiverse.
Who didn't see that coming?
They team up. And there is quite a cool thing though. And like in the first episode, you might see like some stars in the sky sort of make the Watcher's eyes, and then slowly he gets closer and closer to the action until he appears in the sky, and then he just straight up appears and says, "Hey, I need your help, guys!" And so he recruits Strange Supreme, Captain Carter, Star-Lord T'Challa, Party Thor, Black Panther, Killmonger, and Gamora from the Gamora
where she killed Thanos. So this is the delayed episode, which it's just, to me it's like, hey guys, figure it out.
Yeah.
you cannot air this episode before the episode where Gamora and Tony go on an adventure together. You can't.
Yeah, it's Tony on Sakaar, and so apparently that was like, this is the big Tony episode, supposedly.
We got
and
the
people
Killmonger one. I felt like that was a pretty big Tony episode.
No, I mean like, so he dies in every appearance in What If as it is, but there was like,
except for this one.
We didn't realize, but there's only like one episode where things work out for him, and we cut it from season 1. But
figure it out. You cannot air this episode without having aired that episode first.
But this one's fucking stupid, man. Zola's in it, and he manages to take control of Ultron's body, and but then Killmonger gets the stones, and
then they do it with Killmonger gets the stones, and and I was like, you want this guy to be a villain so bad that you're gonna like give him. Like, I thought there was an unrealistic thing for Killmonger to do. I don't think Killmonger is power hungry. I think he wants to serve up.
Well, he's not called Mame-monger.
But I don't know. It felt like a bit of a character assassination.
Do you not think Killmonger's power hungry?
No, actually, I
would say that's his entire character.
No, it's not power. It's not power for the sake of power, though, which is what like Ultron is. He wants to make the world a better place, and he gets the gauntlet, and he's got it in his hand, and he basically says, "I'm going to end racism with the Infinity Stones," and everyone's like, "No!" And again, it's just like, let him do it. It's What If. Let him do it. What's the worst that could happen?
What if Killmonger ended racism?
What if Killmonger ended racism? Just have that be an episode. Like, it's so stupid.
But as it stands, this is the worst.
I thought this was so bad. I thought this was such a bad show, and I only watched it out of obligation. And
I thought some of them were great.
And I just think that, like, because this is getting a season 2, and it's like something I'm so uninterested in seeing. Jeffrey Wright plays the Watcher, by the way.
Yeah, 93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's because it's fucking Marvel, and everyone fucking is blinded by their love for it, unless it's Eternals, I guess.
Yeah. But also in terms of like future, 100% Haley Atwell's going to play Captain Carter in live action somehow.
They also didn't do
Mark
what
my
if the
words.
other half of the universe got snapped, which to me is the best idea you could do with this concept. And that should be the season 2 finale. And I bet it'll suck. I bet it'll be really fucking boring.
Oh, unless it's an even numbered episode. But there was also a Star-Lord T'Challa spin-off planned, which got canned after Chadwick passed away.
This is my final thought on What If, Marvel's What If. I think it's weird that they've billed this as part of Phase 4 because I think it's too inconsequential to be counted in as part of the main series. And I think that all the episodes were too long. I think they all tried to cram too much into it. And I think these should have been half as long as they were, if that. And I think they should have all been dropped at once on Disney Plus and been treated as sort of like this extracurricular thing you can watch, similar to something like Forky Asks a Question for Toy Story. I wish these were smaller scale because I think they would make them better, but it would also mean I don't have to watch them, which I realize is an incredibly indicting thing to. It's such a bad review. I wish these were better so I didn't have to watch them.
So that now we're on to the last series for the year, which was Hawkeye, which was a Christmas series. So this premiered...
Came out from was this the biggest gap between shows?
Maybe. Let's look. October to November. No, it's about the same length as the gap between Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Loki.
Okay. Still, did not expect that. Didn't know this was going to air this year until after What If had finished. Like, I remember being announced, like, no, it's going to air this year.
Yeah. What is Hawkeye about?
All right, so Hawkeye is about Hawkeye, and he's in New York with his family, and then Haley Steinfeld, who plays Kate Bishop, she is like looks up to Hawkeye, and she finds the Ronin suit that he wore during the blip, the 5 years between everyone coming back, where he killed a bunch of people, and she wears it, and this lights up a bunch of people's radars that the Ronin's about, and so Hawkeye finds her to protect her. There's a whole bunch of different parties basically trying to kill Clint, I think is sort of the plot of this, for various reasons. Despite having seen this the most recently, I am struggling to tell you the plot for it because I thought this show felt like several B or C stories slammed together, and everything in it felt like you don't need to pay attention to this storyline as much as the main storyline. But then there wasn't a main storyline, so I can't remember what a lot of it is about.
Yeah, hot take time. I think this is the best one.
I think it's the most consistent one. Definitely the most consistent one. I think.
This is the only one that the finale of it just felt like a climax of a story. Which
also makes me think this probably would have felt better as a movie, maybe, or released all at once, like as all episodes released at once. I didn't love it, but I liked it. And didn't have
I really, really like this one. But yeah, also you have Florence Pugh show up as Yelena, the Black Widow, and she's avenging her sister's death, but then as she's about to deliver the killing blow on Clint, they sort of realize that they both loved Natasha, and it's a nice send off for that character who didn't get like a proper one in Endgame. But yeah, you also have Tony Dalton as Jack Duquesne, who is a very fun character, who's Lalo from Better Call Saul, who's believed to be the villain for most of the series, but it's just a guy who loves swords.
It's actually the real villain is actually Vera Farmiga. Surprise! This A-list actress that we cast as an incidental character ends up being quite crucial to the plot.
Would you consider Vera Farmiga an A-list actor?
Big enough that you wouldn't just cast her as the main character's mum. Maybe not.
She is over 30 though, so like as a female actress, kind of falls off the radar a little bit.
I think more what I'm saying is like she just like unsuspiciously played the Kate Bishop's mum for so much of it that it was like, why have you cast Vera Farmiga as this character?
Also, in the finale, we have showing up because there's talk of like the big guy throughout it, and there's like there's a guy that you don't want to mess with, and in the penultimate episode, it's revealed to be Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, and then he appears in the finale, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, who played him in the Daredevil TV series, bringing that also into the fold.
Which was revealed the same night as spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home, that Daredevil appeared in that movie. I liked this series, but the Vincent D'Onofrio thing, I was like, I've never seen Daredevil, and I felt like the show did not do a very good job of like it should have felt like this is the first time we've seen Kingpin.
I saw you say something like that, but I didn't. I thought it did fine.
I just didn't know what his deal was, and he was like invulnerable, and I don't know.
He's a chonky boy. That's his whole power. That's his whole thing. He's a chonk.
I also had to put subtitles on for every episode. I thought the sound mix was hard to decipher, which is funny because it's a show that a lot of it is about being deaf.
Yeah, there's that one episode where I couldn't hear anything for the first 5 minutes.
And I don't know. I don't want to praise it too much because I don't think it was great, but it was fine. There's also one of the main characters is Echo, who's getting her own spin-off, and she was played by... God, where is she on the cast list? Is she at the bottom? No, where is she? Is her name not Echo? Fra Fee? No?
Aleka Cox. Maya Lopez.
Okay, there you go. Cool, yeah, there you go. Maya Lopez as Echo, who's getting her own series, who's in real life she's deaf and has a fake leg. That's real. Yeah. She's a real amputee. Which is cool because you know what's cool, Richard? Representation.
Woke trash.
Representation. Representation is great, and between this and Eternals, I think they should be a little bit commended for representing, like deaf representation and that sort of thing. We also got things like A Quiet Place also doing that for people. And
Eternals.
Yeah, I said that.
Yep, you did.
Anyway, what do you want to talk about in Hawkeye?
I don't know. Again, like for me, this is like it's one of the good ones. So I don't have much to talk about. I thought this was great. I think Kate Bishop, I really liked as a character. And yeah, one interesting thing actually that we haven't spoken about is that all of these shows sort of serve to set up like a young Avengers character. So like WandaVision introduces Tommy and Billy, but they die by the end of it. But the post-credit scene, apparently I didn't notice this, I saw it on Wikipedia just now, that it's like she hears her children screaming while she's astral projecting and studying the Darkhold. So they are real in some multiverse.
I guess my terrible sound system on my TV prevented me from hearing that.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier introduces a younger Falcon. Hawkeye has this young...
Who's the younger Falcon?
He gives us to a guy called Torres, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, Joaquin Torres. And Loki, I mean, we get Sylvie, I guess, but
is it young Loki?
I mean, Loki's kind of a separate thing, but then Hawkeye we get Kate Bishop explicitly, and then like Black Widow gave us Yelena, and so it's like it does feel very much like we're getting some sort of
young Avengers. Did you see the thing where there was like a panel and someone asked Haley Steinfeld if there's going to be a Young Avengers movie, and she turns around and looks at Kevin Feige, who like shoots her a death glare.
He screams with his eyes.
So I imagine we'd probably see Spider-Man in that as well, right? A Young Avengers.
Yeah, maybe.
Cool, do it. Fuck it.
That's the Marvel TV shows for 2021.
What did you think? What did you think of Rogers, the Steve Rogers musical?
I thought it was great, and so it was real funny because I was quite late. I watched the first episode. And I was like watching it with friends, kind of thing. But because of daylight savings now, the episodes used to come out at 7 p.m. and now they come out at 9 p.m. And so to organize and then they released the first 2 episodes together, and so it was like oh, it's too late to watch 2 episodes. And then we're like, well, we'll watch the next one next week. And then it just kept getting pushed. And I ended up like not watching until the whole series was out. But I had seen TikToks about Hawkeye having the worst post-credit scene in the MCU. And it's just a massive extended part of Rogers the Musical. And I thought it was so funny.
I think I was disappointed because I was expecting something important.
To pan to someone.
Yeah.
Like Yelena being like, I should have gone to the Eiffel to the
yeah.
I was going to say Eiffel Tower, but I mean Empire State Building, because she talks about wanting to see that.
That would have been.
But
good.
yeah, I thought it was funny. I think it's a fun little troll. And it's like, you obviously put on this musical, so they're just like, we want to show it to you. But I also like that. In Spider-Man: No Way Home, in the opening scene when he's like swinging away from the paparazzi, there's several billboards for Rogers the Musical.
Oh, cool. I didn't know. So I guess the Christmas that Hawkeye is set at is the same Christmas that Spider-Man No Way Home ends on?
Well, I mean, Broadway musicals run for a long time, so.
True. Alrighty.
Yeah, so I thought that was fun.
So what's on the horizon for Marvel TV
What
shows?
is on the horizon?
Surely it won't be just as much.
So
spoilers, if you go on the Wikipedia page, it is a very long table of new TV shows coming out.
So we've got coming in 2022, we've got Moon Knight, which I'm very excited for, starring Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke. We've got She-Hulk, we've got Secret Invasion, and Ms. Marvel, and then we've also got a Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special coming in December. Yeah, what are you excited for out of those?
She-Hulk. I'm interested.
Interestingly, She-Hulk's 10 episodes, I didn't realize.
Do you know why? That'll be the procedural.
Hopefully.
That'll be the legal procedural, so they're giving it 10 episodes because you need... If the one thing a procedural needs, it's a lot of episodes.
It's 10 episodes. It's exactly 10
I am looking forward to that. I like that Mark Ruffalo is going to be in it. I think it looks really interesting. And it's
you got Tim Roth in it.
Oh, do you? Really?
And,
is he in
Jamila
it?
Jamil.
Oh,
yeah, Tim
hell
Roth is
as Emil
Blonsky.
I love that they're bringing him back. That's great. I didn't know he was back in it. That's got me really excited. I think She-Hulk is the most interesting sounding one of these.
I think Moon Knight is.
Yeah, that'd be my next pick.
Moon Knight's a fun character. Oscar Isaac's great, and Ethan Hawke's someone who's been. Oh, he said he's inspired by cult leader David Koresh. Ethan Hawke's
David Koresh. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you know much about him?
If it's who I'm thinking of. Oh no. No, I was thinking of the Heaven's Gate guy. This is the
Waco. He was part of the Waco siege.
Waco. Yeah. No, I don't know much about him, but
it's an interesting reversal of our dynamic for you to correct my pronunciation of things twice in
Koresh and Waco
succession. Yeah. But yeah, Ethan Hawke's been someone that's been like pleaded to join a superhero movie in the past and has always said, I would do one. I would want, the role to be meaty kind of thing. And yeah, the fact that this convinced him, and he said that Oscar Isaac was wanting to work with him was partially as well why. Secret Invasion should be interesting. It's got Nick Fury in it. This is one because like Secret Invasion is like, if it's just going to be entirely new characters, because you've got like Olivia Colman and Emilia Clarke in it, but it's like I feel like for Secret Invasion to really hit home, you need, and also Ben Mendelsohn's going to be in it as Talos. You need like to reveal that people are Skrulls, and it's like, oh, Olivia Colman's brand new character is a Skrull. Okay.
Well, I think true, but I also think that it may be better to have a main character invented for Secret Invasion, whom all these characters can be revealed as Skrulls around, right? Who's going to be a Skrull? Sharon Carter?
You got Ms. Marvel, which was originally supposed to come out this year.
Right.
And like at the end of 2020, I think it was announced as being part of the 2021 slate.
Okay.
But yeah, that'll be fun. And then she's going to appear in the Marvels. And then Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special will be fun. And apparently that's going to lead directly into the third one. It's going to be filmed concurrently kind of thing.
Nice. Yeah, and then according to Wikipedia, we've also got an indeterminate time in the future. We've got Ironheart, Armor Wars, an Untitled Wakanda series, an Untitled Halloween special, Loki Season 2, What If Season 2, Echo, Agatha House of Harkness, the Agatha Harkness spin-off, Spider-Man Freshman Year, which is an animated Spider-Man Homecoming prequel. Do we know if Tom Holland's going to be in it?
You would have to hope he would be, right?
Yeah. Then Marvel Zombies is getting its own show, and then an untitled Destin Daniel Cretton series. So, a lot of fucking...
Are you excited to see Destin Daniel Cretton?
Who's he?
He directed Shang-Chi.
Oh, what do we reckon this show is going to be?
Probably some Shang-Chi adjacent thing, but yeah, he said... but also that Halloween special is apparently based on Werewolf by Night.
Who's that about? Oh,
it's a character.
Well, there we go. So, let us know, everybody, what you thought of the Marvel shows. I overall thought quite a weak offering, but there's some good stuff in there, and that's cool. Good for them.
Some weak offering, he said on our off-weekering podcast.
How have we never thought of that joke before?
Because we're off-weekering. That's what we should call it now when we're recording an off-week.
A podcast. Week off. A week off.
An off week.
I get it. A week, yeah. Let us know what you all thought of the Marvel shows. I'm sure got a lot of... You make a podcast about Marvel, you get people you haven't seen on the Discord in years showing back up to tag me personally in a post to tell me that I'm objectively wrong. I love it. Do it. Tell me that. It's funny. I think it's funny. So yeah, let us know. What did I get? Am I so wrong in my political allegiances and how I view certain aspects of certain shows through that? Or Richard. Maybe Richard's wrong. Unlikely, but it's happened. You didn't know how to pronounce David Koresh. But yeah, I think we've done a good job of wrapping up the Marvel updates since our MCU episode. And I can't wait to do this every year till the end of time.
Yep.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting us on all the places you can like us on. We follow us on Instagram and Twitter. You can join our Discord, which there's a link to in the show notes. And there is also a Patreon, patreon.com/cultpopture, where if you join it, you get to be a part of our post-credit scene segment, which is coming up appropriately in our Marvel episode, just after this music.
Post-credits.
What did I say?
No, I'm saying like that. It's
right.
Appropriately coming post the credits.
Yeah, cool. Welcome along to the post-credits scene. This is a segment at the end of each episode where if you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get to give us something to talk about in the post-credits scene. Richard, lay it on me. Who's it from and what is it?
All right. Today's post-credits scene comes to us from... Sam Page, who says, I am currently watching Toy Story 4. This is a film franchise that has left me with long-lasting misery and existential dread. Even as an adult, I find these films upsetting. Charming, but upsetting. Cult Popture, have you experienced anything similar? Any advice?
Yeah, there's plenty of shows or movies which I just find so miserable, but like excellent, that I don't want to watch again. I remember feeling this way about a film called Elephant by Gus Van Sant. I remember feeling this way about Darren Aronofsky's Mother, though I did then watch Mother again. I might have told the story of the podcast before. I watched Mother at a group of people after I'd already seen it, and afterwards people were trying to figure out what it all meant. I hadn't said what the popular interpretation was. And then one of my friends was like, so it was a metaphor for like the story of Genesis in the Bible. And then everyone in the room was like, what are you talking about? I don't think that's what it is at all. And I was like, what? Are you stupid? Like, it's clearly that. And it was really funny because the person who had picked up on it was not the most like movie literate friend in the friend group, but had understood it more than anyone else, and that was
It was the most biblically literate.
Maybe, probably.
Just watches every film through that lens and was finally right for once. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I am filled with long-lasting misery and existential dread most of the time.
But
So it's
movies
not.
are actually an escape for you.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my advice is watch movies.
Watch more miserable movies.
Mm.